isolation finally.
Yeah. So because you went to New Zealand, so you've been trying to, or you were going to be head coaching one of the New Zealand NBL sides, but of course COVID come to spoil all that. So you want to explain what's been what your last 5 or 6 weeks have been spent doing?
Yeah, well, after I left the Hawks back in March, I started working for myself, which was awesome. It was great just working in the community with kids, and in particular, picked the Western regions of New South Wales, doing clinics and stuff like that. And but fast forward down the track, I did the national program, the World Championships over in Naples, which was awesome. And I guess that gave me the bug
Yeah.
to get back in a team coaching again, because after I left the Hawks, I honestly didn't know if I wanted to coach again. But it was really great, awesome time away at the World Cup, and it sort of got the juices flowing again. And an opportunity came up to coach Southland, so spent pretty much a few months trying to build a program, recruit, and get over there. And as soon as I got there, the COVID hit, and I was put in isolation for 14 days. As part of the deal with, as soon as you get in the country, you had to sit 14 days in a room. But while I was there, they actually went into lockdown as well. So what that meant was they shut everything down, the borders, the flights, everything. You couldn't go anywhere. So I was pretty much stuck. Didn't know when I was coming home. And eventually their Prime Minister, Arden, opened up the borders, and it took 8 days to actually get a flight out of New Zealand, because they only let a few go. So I had to drive from Invercargill to Dunedin, then fly Dunedin to Christchurch, Auckland, Sydney, lob up at the airport and taken away in a bus, put in a hotel room for 14 days. So I got out last weekend, and it's great to 39 days in isolation. So it's good to be back. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's something that's hitting the mining industry at the moment. Similar sort of scenario for fly in, fly out workers. They got my neighbours in that situation, and it's just too much to. They come home, they got 2 weeks isolation. They fly out, they got 2 weeks, then they got 3 weeks on, and then they fly back to. So a lot of them are just staying out at the mines if they can. So yeah, that's a long time, isn't it? That amount of days to be sort of isolated. So
Yeah, no, it was. It was really tough, and particularly when I got back to Sydney, because I was only an hour or so, away from where I live, and knowing I was so close, I couldn't do anything. It was you got four walls. I was really lucky. I was one of the real lucky ones that I actually had a little balcony that was probably 40 centimetres by 60 centimetres, so you could just stand there, and at least I could open a door and get some fresh air in. But yeah, above me where I was staying, they were locked windows, and it was only air conditioning. And I heard there was some stories with people, really, they were smashing up the room. They were really doing it tough. So, I consider myself one of the lucky ones that I had a little bit of fresh air come in each day.
yeah, that's good. So we've already got some people asking questions. I knew it wouldn't take long. So, so this is the idea of live streaming with friends. Is that the idea is while I say live streaming with friends, I also mean with other people, and I appreciate those that have rocked up. So we've got Kobe Freeman who actually spent some time in a suit for the Perth Wildcats, but not as a player, as one of the crowd guys, for the local radio station. So he says, "Hey Rob," and it says, "What was the first Wildcats coach? Oh, you were the first Wildcats coach he watched." He said, and he's a hero over here, so that's a compliment. So nice to hear that.
Thanks, Toby.
So yeah, and then you got Ivan Grub Newton, who's been watching every week. So shout out to him. What's your favourite basketball movie or book, mate?
Oh, geez. It's one of those things. I read so many different books. Like I'll read a basketball book. I flick through stuff. I mean, I liked Phil Jackson's 11 Rings. John Wooden, Call Me Coach.
Mm-hmm.
I've been reading that, and a lot of that's to I'm writing a book at the moment, so I'm trying to you know, look at some of the greats. I've been reading those books there. Movie wise, I don't watch a whole lot of basketball movies. It's one of those things because you do basketball 24/7, 7 days a week. I actually like to get away from it. So I actually read 4 or 5 books at once. I'm all over the place. So it could be fiction, non-fiction, biographies, stuff like that. When it comes to movies, I try and get actually away from basketball because you can get too much of it. So I can't really help you too much on that. I mean, White Men Can't Jump. I just remember a bit of that. That and Semi-Pro. That's probably one of my all-time favourites.
Yeah, it is a good movie. So you got your mate Big Joe. Didn't take him long to enter the room and say, "Bevo the bull." so, so that if those who don't know, I interviewed Big Joe the other week, and he's been an NBL manager for multiple clubs of multiple teams. So he says that he had the privilege of travelling with you with the emerging boomers a couple of seasons back and shared some nice stories. And when I called you Bevo, he said, "No, it's Bull." So any stories you can share about that experience? He sort of shared the uniform one where you guys were at the dying moments trying to work out how to get your uniforms for the World Uni Games.
Oh, I mean that was. I think we lost 6 bags. Half the players didn't have their gear. They didn't have basketball boots. They didn't have a whole lot of stuff. And it was game day when we actually got the uniform. So Joe was absolutely shitting himself. That was hilarious. But they arrived pretty much on game day and stuff like that. But that working with Joe and Adam Ford and Jamie O'Loughlin, Jamie Phillips, that actually revitalised me. That you can, when you work with great people in a good program, it was actually those guys who probably got the juices flowing again. Like day in day out, we're living with each other. We had so much fun. And a lot of that can be contributed to those guys, and particularly Big Joe.
Yeah.
He's a great guy. He made us laugh a lot.
So that was after the stint at your last stint in the NBL at Illawarra, yeah. So that opportunity came up pretty quick, didn't it? A month or two after the season. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much after the season. Basketball and so I went through the process of applying for why not. I thought I've always been incredibly passionate about coaching my country, and I thought no, I want to do this. I love doing tournament play. I love that type of aspect, and thought I'll give it a go and see how we went. We ended up winning a bronze medal, and literally 1 point off the gold medal game. That's how close it was. We lost the semi-final by a point to Ukraine, and but no, that was just a fabulous time.
So a question that I've had in discussions with friends, and this is one I think's probably come up, and it's a bit hard to ask you because you coach the Scottish team, and you have assisted in the men's senior program in the past. But is it an aspiration to actually coach for Australia at a Commonwealth or Olympics? Is that a goal for you that you feel is something you'd like to do?
I'd love to. It's just one of those things. That was part of the process of getting back on the horse and doing the emerging boomers. If they do a great job, that I can show that I can actually coach that level. There's no doubt. I mean, I love international competition. I mean, tournament play is different to seasonal play as well. It's a different beast, but it's always been a goal of mine to coach Australia. And I came very, very close back in 2013. Came down either myself or Lamanis, and powers that be chose Lamanis, and he's gone on and done a tremendous job and stuff like that. But I'd love to one day be given the opportunity to do it, and that's why I want to get back coaching. Part of the process was the emerging boomers, and then part of the plan was to coach Southland Sharks, coaching the New Zealand League, because that league's become really good. A lot of NBL players are playing in that because it's a short season. And then if any NBL jobs come up, I'd love to have another crack at that if anything happens. But I definitely would love to put my hand up for the boomers. But something I have learned in my life is the higher your expectations, the bigger the disappointment. Yep. So I'm not going to think, oh, geez, I'll have to get the job or my world's going to cave in. It's not about that. But to answer you, long story short, I'd love to.
Yeah, that was a question from Jay Pickering. I've got another one from Mark Irwin. So we'll go one per decade, but he's asking, and I remember we've known each other for around 30 years. You probably don't remember our first meeting, but I certainly do, which I'll come back to. But he asks your opinion on the best players in the NBL through the decade, starting with the 80s. So yeah, I know it's a tricky question, isn't it? Because you're sort of asked to, just you can pick one in any category. That if you were to pick a team from, if you'll be picking players, let's go another way. Let's pick roles players from, as though you're picking a team from the last 3 or 4 decades. So who would you be taking for your team?
Well, I grew up in Canberra, watching the Canberra Cannons. So Phil Smythe always comes to mind. I thought he was the ultimate competitor, the ultimate point guard. So he really stood out. During my time when James Crawford was there as well, in the late 80s and stuff like that. They're the ones that really, really stood out to me. Back in those 80s and stuff like that. When I was still a young guy and as a fan going watching the Cannons play, they stood out. As we moved into the 90s, I was involved. Just trying to think with the Wildcats in the day, the Ricky Grace, again Andrew Vlahoff, Scott Fisher, those types of guys were another level. You work with those guys day in day out. I was with the Wildcats as a I call it shit kicker back in the day, learning the trade, and they were incredible people to be around. 90s, 2000s. I'd always have to go with my boy Kevin Lish. He's always up there as one of the greats, and obviously I've been with Damien Martin for a long period of time. The Sean Reddiges. You look at even the part of the national program there. There's CJ Brutons. Those guys, Kirk Penny. All of those guys. They're always the ones that I sort of jump out and go, oh, geez, they were good. And then I look at from role player perspective, like I always, believe in, when you're picking a team, you've got to have, the glue of the team, and in the Dylan Bouchers, the Mick of the Konas, those types of players, that they're not the flashy players, but they're the heart and soul of the team. And that's a Damien Martin type of thing. You need those grunt types of players. So I was always attracted, not personally attracted to them, but I liked the way that they played the game. And most recent, you can't go past something like Bryce Cotton. Like coaching against him was one of the few players that put a game plan together, and I had no idea what I could do. We
versatile.
Tried to manhandling, we double teamed, we switched, we zoned, we did whatever else, and he stands out massively there. But then you got obviously the Casper Wares and Andrew Bogut. Just over the last few years is the most dominant player. The way he can dictate a game through his defence as well, through his rebounding and passing and stuff like that. So there's a whole lot of names there.
Yeah, it's a big question.
It's a huge question over 3 or 4 decades.
Yeah. So we got Denny Breen. I spoke with Denny last week. So Denny. So
no, Denny too well.
You have consistently had teams punch above their weight at Illawarra and the Scottish team. So that's a compliment as well. What do you attribute that to? Having the lower budgets and the teams that are the underdogs in these leagues sometimes, and how do you attribute the success that you tend to have with those teams?
I think it's always a case of trying to find out what makes those people tick. Some of those smaller budget teams, they play for the love of the game. Like there's nothing to do with money, at all. So they're not there's no intrinsic motivation with how much money they can earn and stuff like that. A lot of the time, they just want to play hard and they want to play within a team system and play together. And that's probably the biggest things with those teams is get them to buy into the system and make them part of it. I'm not a dictator as a coach. My job is to help them to get better. And I've got a philosophy of, it's about the athlete, so it's always about trying to make them better. And I think if you show them, how much you do care for them and what you do for them, they will go the extra mile when you push them and when you ask them to do things. But I do things very simply. I believe I'm a pretty simple coach with what I run, but we're very, very good at it.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to put players or teams in a situation of that it's too intellectual. Trying to outsmart the opposition. I think we just become great at the little things, and that's probably one of the things that we've done with Illawarra in the past, and particularly with Scotland was put those guys in a situation to have a lot of fun together, particularly off the court, on the court when you cross that white line. We're playing hard for each other and playing together.
Yeah, so it is one of the things you have had some teams that are seen as being underdog teams. Just want to welcome anyone that's tuning in tonight to People with a Passion with my guest Rob Beveridge, who has over 300 NBL games under his kilt, is the way Fanfare put it. So you're not going to live that down, having your photo taken in a kilt, but obviously Scottish heritage, so that's a bit of pride there, so you're not worried about that.
No, not at all.
But so getting the call up, I think you had a teary eye because one of your goals, as we just said earlier a few minutes ago, is to actually coach the Australian national team. But to be asked to coach Scotland, what did that mean for you?
Oh, it was incredible. I mean, I'm first generation Australian, so Scottish family, and I've been back there to where my family was born, and to be able to give them the opportunity to get a phone call, hey, would you coach Scotland? Like I didn't bat an eyelid. I'm very proud of my heritage, and it was something that kept talking about the passion, but. It was just an incredible experience with amazing people, and to this very day, they're my brothers. All those players, will be lifelong friends, and the coaching staff and the management and the people I worked with. It was a brotherhood that we developed, together in such a short period of time, and we're on it was like a mission that when we sung the national anthem, and it was just an incredible experience, and just to see how they came together was it was a pretty emotional situation for everybody.
So I've got someone on YouTube asking, what is your biggest highlight in your career? I know you've had a few, but what do you rate as the best experiences? The Scottish team obviously would be one of them, I imagine, but what's something else?
Yeah, there's no question. Coaching Scotland in the Com Games, what we did was very, very special. But I am born and bred in Australia, and representing Australia, and probably the thing that really accelerated my career was the national junior team, the Emus, when we won the World Championship back in 2003. That was probably the most influential thing for me as a coach. Because after that, I then got appointed to assistant coach with the Boomers. We went to the Athens Olympics and the 2006 World Champs, stuff like that. So that actually, if we hadn't done so well or won a World Championship, I wouldn't have got a call up into the senior team. So that was probably, from a personal perspective, that was one of the all-time greats for me, was that. But if I go back to 2000, a lot of people don't know this, but I was actually assistant coach of the women's wheelchair program back in 2000. So to go to the Paralympics, walking through at the opening ceremony, there was 110,000 people at the stadium, and when we came through that tunnel and the roar of that stadium, it's something I'll never ever forget as well. So, I've had a few, but those really, really stand out. And then obviously the other one that was great for me was winning the championship with the Wildcats.
Yeah.
That was amazing, and unfortunately, to be honest, I'm still filthy for this day that we didn't win more than just one. We lost two more with Damien Martin snapping his Achilles 5 days out, and another time he did his ankle as well, and we had illness and all of these little things like that. I mean, they sound like excuses, but I know to this day that if those guys were fully fit, that we would have won more championships, and that's probably, although it was an awesome experience, it was also a pretty massive letdown.
I mean, you had the foundation of a championship team in 2010. You won it, but you went, I think, 4 years there or 5 years there. You were like four times in the finals, three times grand final or something. And then you parted with the club, mutual terms, from what I understand. They always say that, but but yeah, you went to Shanghai, coached the Shanghai Sharks in the CBA, and you can't stay away from the name Sharks because you're Southland Sharks. So there's something about Sharks, mate. But you said the team has the same colours too. So the Southland Sharks and the Shanghai. Well, how was your Chinese experience? What was the
absolutely an amazing experience, and I actually had opportunities before, like at least a year out before I took the contract over there. So while I was still coaching with the Wildcats, we played some pre-season games against Shanghai, Guangzhou, Beijing in pre-season. We played them over a couple of years. So I developed a bit of a relationship with some of the Chinese teams, and they did speak to me previously about going over there, but my goal was to coach the Boomers.
Mhm.
And I want to win another championship with the Wildcats. I wanted to coach the Boomers, and basically I didn't get the job with the Boomers. We lost the grand final series on our home court. Then we find out I don't get the Boomers job, and I was off contract. I was mentally, physically, emotionally. I was a train wreck at that time, and I needed a break, and I just wasn't prepared to go around. And then the stuff at Shanghai was coming up. I knew it was going to be there, so it was like, okay, what do I do now? Type of thing. I'm off contract, and so we were back and forth about what I do, and I pulled the pin and made the decision that no, I'm going to go to China,
Mhm.
and amazing.
So interestingly, we almost look at that scenario as it stands now. Bit of an omen being with the Southland Sharks. So ahead of trying to crack it back into the NBL, which with potential clubs coming on board and some coaching changes, you never know what's down the track. But during that period of the 2000s, because Brett Brown's been appointed as our next coach for the program, was Brett the coach at that time when you were assisting him previously, or who was the coach of
No,
the?
that was Gorge.
Oh,
Yeah, so
Gorgon. All right.
Gorge.
Yeah, I couldn't
Right.
remember because
Yeah.
did Brett Brown do it for a period? Did
Yeah.
he
So
take?
Brett stepped down. He was with Gorge, and he stepped down, took a
Okay.
job in the NBA,
Yep.
and that opened up a position, and that's where. So it was pretty good timing from my perspective. Came off the world championships we won, and that position became open. So I went and worked with Gorge for a few years. But I guess getting back to China, unbelievable experience to be able to. I lived in Shanghai, a city of 24 million people. Uh, you know, played 3 games a week in the league. The amount of travel all over China, so you get to see how things operate, and just the amount of trainings you do. I mean, they train 7 days a week, twice a day, and it was hard from like a Western coach to be able to come in. I mean, Shanghai wanted me to come in and do it the Western way,
Okay. Yep.
but their way is that they train 7 days a week from 9 to 12 and 3 to 6 every day, 7 days a week. Plus, they want to play games, and I was trying to make a whole lot of change, and the players, they all live together. They don't live with their families. They're pretty much owned by the CBA or by the clubs. You've got your imports that get paid exceptionally good money. I mean, I'm talking millions,
Hmm.
millions of US dollars net for 5 months.
Yeah.
You know, you just see to the extreme that when we're playing games, I remember our media guy said that we played a game in front of 150 million people. I mean, that you can't fathom that.
No.
Just the amount of money that's involved in the league was amazing, and you got to see, games that you can't win. You go to a game and you just can't win.
Yeah.
So the players don't play hard because there's just no point. So, I got to see a lot of things, and it was definitely a wonderful experience to see all of China.
I had a conversation at a program that Lamanis was at. I don't want to necessarily get him in trouble on this one, but we're talking about when the Bullets went over to China pre-season for a couple of games, and the entourage, because they were winning, so the entourage was hinting that they might want to lose one in China. So I've heard that before. So yeah, China's a question mark around their sportsmanship and approach sometimes. So yeah, so you're probably alluding to that. Something I thought we'd touch on too, because everyone else is talking about it. You've seen a couple. I spoke to you today of the Last Dance episodes. And even though it's 20 years ago, how true to form is that business side of basketball at the professional level with coaching and management and things like that? Because Joey's just mutually left his situation. I know you can't speak to Joey, and hopefully I'll get to speak to him on the show soon. But the scenario of where the clubs and the coaches have to come together, and sometimes you just make a decision to move on. So how close to reality of what we said? Well, it obviously is reality, but for any level of sport.
Yeah, look, it's really getting that way. I mean, it's been in the NBA forever that the coaches in the NBA, they don't pick the teams. They generally don't. It's all about the GMs and their management and their selection people, and it is purely a business, and that's the way that I've seen the change over my career. Is it's become more business oriented. That's what we're trying to say to our players, that it's not personal. Keep all the players and stuff like that, but you've got to make decisions based on budgets, based on a number of things, and generally what I've seen over the last few years in particular is that when owners come in, they're putting a lot of money into it, so that they, in their own right, whether they think about it or don't think about it, it's their money. So they want to be invested into a whole lot more. And some clubs want to treat it a bit like a PlayStation. Mm-hmm. That, okay, well, this is no good. I want trade this person, get rid of that. And I look at the fantasy league stuff that it happens right now in our league, where people are on Facebook or whatever else, and they're trading players week in, week out. Well, there's actually a human side to the game. And that's what I love about the game is, you're a bunch of brothers trying to work together to achieve something special. But the change now is that you do have owners that have got an enormous amount of money or a lot of money, and they want to have a more of a say in who is selected, in the team, who plays minutes, who does this, who does that.
Yeah.
And I've definitely seen a change over the last 2 years.
Yeah. So there was a bit of stuttering there, and I got a message come up, but people tell me the obvious. So our internet connections come good again, but we are over the internet over a long distance, and these things do happen. But I heard everything you had to say there on that, and yeah, I think the other thing, the demonstration of how businessy it's become too, is the announcement today of, there was a board meeting of the NCAA board where they're looking at allowing the student athletes to actually take money or be compensated for their likeness and endorsements of products and things like that. You've put a number of athletes into college back when you were the head of the New South Wales what is it? The Institute of Sport. So how do you see that evolution for the game if they manage to do that in 21-22, which is their plan?
Yeah, well, look, I've looked at it for many years, and again, it goes back to the business side that college sport, the NBA, professional sport, particularly in the USA because of the market. When you've got 300 plus million people, it is a multi-billion-dollar business. So people don't get that, and when the product is actually the athletes. So when you're getting these, we had LaMelo Ball in our league, but those types of players, those top 30 NBA picks, they're worth millions of dollars. So people are actually paying, and they don't get 1 cent when they're in college. So to me, when it's a multi-billion-dollar, where does all the money go? I mean, it goes towards paying for scholarships and things like that. But when you're playing at a 20,000 seat stadium, week in, week out, and the TV dollar rights over there is huge. So I think it was only a matter of time before those players do get a little bit of the pie.
And I think it's possible to try and keep them there too, because you're seeing one of the moves recently is that there has been pushes by clubs in the NBA to now stop players from trying to venture to Australia. So we're trying to put what we see as potential for them to help. There's now, I guess, approaches where they're trying to encourage them not to come to the NBL. Now, from what I saw in an article a couple of weeks back, I don't know what the powers at play are there, but they're saying that the Next Stars program is a lure now for those athletes, but maybe the NCAA is recognising that these players may actually go straight into the pro leagues elsewhere if they're not, given the opportunity to get some income while studying, because they are worth millions, like I say, as brands.
Yeah, and again, they're just the pawn. Like the athletes, they're part of the product. So if they can keep, the very, very best players, in the college system, that'll make more money. But if they come over here, well, they don't get a piece of that. So I can see what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
I personally think that by having those younger players come in and playing a men's league, that they're going to develop better as a player than playing against their own age group, in college where they're 18 to 22. When they're playing against men, day in, day out, I think that, RJ Hampton and LaMelo Ball and those types of players are better players now than when they first came in.
Yeah. There's obvious questions here around, will we get to see you coach again in the NBL? I think that's the goal. So that's not necessarily your call. We're just talking about business. It is your call in applying and asking and putting your hand up, but ultimately, from a business perspective, it's the boards and the management and that will ultimately make those decisions. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, of course, I want to get back in the NBL, but it does. There's only 9 teams, and there's only a certain amount of jobs, and the owners and GMs these days, that they probably know what they want out there, and I mean, I'm a career coach. I've got runs on the boards. I know I can do the job. It's just a matter of right place at the right time.
And how I might go to the group. I just had a mental blank. I was going to ask how hard is it to do something, but I can't remember what it was. So, do you want a drink, mate? Grab a drink if you've got one there. And I'll.
All good.
You good? All right. So, if anyone wants to ask Bevo a question, because mine went blank, then throw one into the comments. If you haven't yet started a watch party, then by all means feel free to start a watch party and share our chat. And if you want to ask a question, ask a question. I'm just going across my tabs here, Bevo, to see if we have any. So how good is it when... So I've got a question here from Peter Campbell. It says, my eyesight's not good neither, so my memory and my eyesight is shocking. So here we go. So how good would it be when the Bud Light virus is over? So, and the Bevo International, so that you started in 2013, and you've been doing some coaching stuff clinic wise, so you might want to explain what Bevo International is, and Bruton basketball, so do a national tour. So yeah, so what's happening with Bevo International? Explain what that is for people.
Yeah, so I've been working with FIBA for many years now. So they basically send me anywhere, to Japan, Korea, Philippines, Singapore, Middle East, New Zealand, USA. So I've been working with them for a lot, and I also work with several teams in Asia. So I've been working up there for many years. So that's where Bevo International comes into it. I've been working, I'm massive on coach education and teaching kids and stuff like that as well. It's been always a passion of mine. So I've been running a whole lot of coach education stuff all over, basically all over Australia. But you can only do so much, so that's the thing. I've picked, in particularly the last 9 months in Western New South Wales, everywhere from Dubbo through Orange, West Wyalong, Cootamundra, Lithgow, Orange, lots of different places doing player clinics for under 12s, 14s, 16s, 18s, and coach education all over Australia as well. So it's something that I'll always continue to do. So that's what I do during the off season. From NBL or whatever I might be doing. So that's always going to be there. I've been doing it for many years now. And, who knows? I've good mates with Cal, so maybe we'll get together and run some camps depending on what happens.
Yeah, so speaking of coaching education, we'll come back to my 30 years of knowing you. I don't know if you remember, but you took me for my level 1. At Pop Dickerson Super Camp, I was a coach, but I was completing my level 1 back in, I think it was 93 or 94. And it was at Gregory Terrace here in Brisbane. And I was a player at the time and getting my coaching because I was a coach in high school, I just finished school. And I remember, and I've used it with my athletes all the time, we were doing layups and I was going 100 mile an hour and you said, hey, slow down, you're quick, you're rushing, but if you slow down 1 or 2 seconds, you're still quick, but you're not rushing. So it was an education, which is why I was there. I was never really coaching to actually be a coach necessarily, even though I've coached for 30 years now. It was always to become better as a player, so teaching helped me reinforce the skills for myself. But to have yourself telling me that was big, and it always locked in my head. And I always tell athletes that are in a similar scenario, because I was quite quick, like not talking myself up. I think 22-second suicide I was normally back at the baseline before everyone was at the other baseline. It was not uncommon. But of course, executing skill at that speed is not necessarily needed. So so I was missing, and you said, hey, slow down. I don't know if you recall that. It was at Gregory Terrace. I think Steve McLeod was also involved in that program. So yeah, that's taking you back 30 years, but it just shows how long you've been involved in coaching education. And then I come to know you through the Queensland Academy of Sport ITC program, just before you moved on from your role at Basketball Queensland. I think we were involved there a year or two. So just some trip down memory lane with how long we've known each other. I don't know whether you remember any of that. I don't expect you to, because you probably
I think you were wearing, I think you might have been in a Lakers top with a yellow headband.
I had blue and yellow, but it wasn't Lakers, but it was Redcliffe. That was our colours. It was a Redcliffe Dolphin uniform.
You had a headband on.
I would have had a hat. So yeah, I always trained in hats and things. But I had yellow and blue though, but it wasn't. It was similar to Lakers because it was double. Yeah. Anyway, that's going into something else. So your memory, trying to jog your memory, but I do remember that experience. And I remember what you said because it made sense to me at the time. And I've had some super quick athletes where I've explained when they're executing skills, it's the same thing. They're still really quick, but slow down. So. So that's really important. But you've had a big role to play in a lot of junior development here in Australia too, because like we just mentioned, New South Wales Institute of Sport, and I said you sent guys over to college. So a lot of people see you at the NBL level, but they don't realise that prior to those experiences, you were involved in a lot of junior development and coaching education, and still are, obviously, with Bevo International. What other things have FIBA got you doing? What else have you been doing for them?
Yeah, so different projects. So, for example, when I went to Korea, I ran their licensing system. So I wrote the curriculum for it was a 3-day workshop. So I've been over there a couple of times where I present for 3 days, taking all the practical stuff, do exams and stuff like that. Another time, like recently, I've been working up in Indonesia. With FIBA, helping the Indonesian Federation help prepare for the 2023 World Cup. So they're a co-host with Japan, the Philippines and Indonesia. So I've been going back and forth up to Jakarta in Singapore working. So it's actually not coaching as such; it's program structures and organisational, and like setting up our development programs in Indonesia. So if you think about, I mean, they've got 220 million people. So we're trying to implement our types of programs within all of Indonesia. So that's a massive job as well. And then they send me off to actually do coaching clinics, at World Championships or be presented, things like that. So it's all varied, which has been really, really good for my own professional development.
Yeah. If anyone's got any questions for Bevo, we had a few early, and I've got about 25 people that are watching across all of my streams. If there are people that start their own watch parties that will have different numbers that I don't see. So if people haven't watched a watch party, I think we've got about another 15, 20 minutes with you, Bevo. I'm looking at my clock here. We said we'd go for roughly an hour. We've been at 40 minutes, so we're doing well, covering a lot of things here. If I just do a bit of a plug for my show. So I'm with Rob Beveridge today doing live streaming with friends, which I do every Thursday night. So if you haven't checked them out, they're still up on YouTube and they're still on Facebook. And I also do interviews with international guests. I've spoken to Kev Eastman, Alan Stein Jr., Brian Kane. They're a lot of motivational guys. Then I've got just people with passion. I've spoken with an undertaker. I just spoke with a special effects director. I've spoken with a child soldier this week who's just published a book, which is called The Lost Boy. And he came into the studio. So if you haven't checked out the YouTube channel, please do so and go and subscribe and have a look at, there's over 31 interviews now, and I've got more lined up with, actually, I don't know whether you know the sports memorabilia guy, Steiner Memorabilia. Have you ever heard of him?
No, I can't.
Okay,
no.
So I won't go into the story, but he established a multi-millionaire, he's multi-millionaire, but he had his company sort of they sideswiped his company from him in a way, but he started a new company. But he's been selling dirt and stuff in pens and things from all the baseball companies and created relationships with them. But a really good story of how he started his business. All he wanted was a car, and he got a newspaper and saw that someone had won a championship and bought all these papers and got them to sign it, and they went into business together, and the rest was history. So one of those great sort of stories. So he's someone that I've connected with we're trying to organise a time to speak. If you haven't liked the Facebook page, People with a Passion, please take time right now to do that as well. So we're with Rob Beveridge. I'm looking to see if we have any questions. If not, we'll make some up. But let's see what we've got here. Okay, so do you think Damo will retire? I think that's probably going to happen, but when's probably the question. I'm assuming that's Damien Martin.
Yeah, all athletes do retire.
Yeah. So,
Damien Martin will retire. That guy's a warrior. I mean, he's put himself, he's had knee reconstructions. He's had, Achilles operations, just had another one recently. Broken nose, broken, everything, every bone in his body's probably been broken. And, he wakes up every day pretty sore these days. And he's now, he's 35 years of age, 36 this year. So,
yeah.
So, I think it'll be sooner than later, but I haven't spoken to him recently over the last few weeks, but I think that it won't be too far off.
So Sam Gruggan's just joined. He's watching. So another NBL assistant from wherever he was involved. Actually, where was he? Cairns or somewhere? Where was Sam? Or Townsville?
Sammy was actually one of my apprentice coaches when I was with West Sydney Razorbacks all those years ago, and. He's actually a very, very good up-and-coming coach. He's a bit of a pain in the ass at times, but he's got a big future.
So he's heading up development or something in New South Wales at the moment, is he? I think he's in a role with Basketball New South Wales.
Overseeing their elite juniors.
Yeah, so shout out to him. So he's joined now. There was another question from Danny Breen, who he was asking about, the highlights of your career, but he also wanted to know about the funniest moments in your career. Are there any stories you can share that you would think worth sharing that were a good laugh? You can't go there.
Martin, he's just one of those guys that he's hopeless. He's one of the most hopeless human beings you'd ever see. That he loses everything, whether it's car keys or shoes or whatever it might be. He's always forgetting something. And I remember over in Greece at the World Championship that I was always on his case about have you got everything? You got your singlet? Have you got this or whatever it might be? But over in Greece, remember that we rocked up to a training session and he's got he doesn't have any. He forgot his socks. So what he did was he actually took his undies off, and he taped his undies to his feet so he didn't get blisters. So that was one of the things that I always remember about Damo, that he actually did a full training session with his undies as socks. And another time at the Wildcats, as I said, he always left stuff behind. And what had happened was over a period of time, it might have been a couple of weeks, he kept leaving his singlet behind. So I kept them all. Washington kept them all. So he got to a point where he's actually borrowing other people's uniforms. So he wasn't wearing a Damien Martin one. But what we did was we put 5 Damien Martin singlets on the players. And we're actually doing the warm-up. We're going up and down the court. We're stretching. They get in a circle around Damo, and they're all stretching. They've all got Martin, number 5 at that stage, or 55, 53, whatever it is. So they had all of these things. He had absolutely no idea until the players, I think they gave him a whack to the head, whatever else, and he accused us all of stealing his gear, but no, he was hopeless like that. And Brian Gorgon, he's another guy that loses everything. And one time he always loses computers, or it doesn't matter. So it was really dangerous that if he carried something of value. So what he did was he actually got his shoe and he tied his shoe to the laptop. So because he thought, okay, when I walk off the plane, I've got to have my shoes on. He actually walked off the plane with one shoe on and left his shoe and his laptop in the compartment in the plane.
They're good stories, mate. I don't know that they all wanted you to tell those, but they are funny. So we've got a New Zealander, Kiwi Hoops, so on YouTube, asking, how do you encourage players holding each other accountable? So and looking and they're looking forward to the book. So I'm not sure who that is, but so those that didn't hear, you can talk to the book, but also answer that question. How do you have players hold each other to account?
Guidelines. You got to know where the goalposts are. That's one of the big things is whether it's what we call your values, what you actually believe in, and what they actually mean. So once you know what they are, so for example, we want to we want a brotherhood is just a value. So part of that is when you come off the court that you high five or you give a water bottle or you give a towel. If somebody's on the ground, you run over and you pick them up. Or it could be a situation of we know that as soon as it's a dead ball, we got to get together as a huddle, so we can communicate with each other and stuff like that. So everybody in the teams knows what their rules are. So then we can hold them accountable. So like we as coaches, we can say, hey, these are our team rules that, you didn't pick the guy up. That's not part of the thing. So that's one sort of thing we like to do. Second thing is before every game, I call them conscious commitments. So before a game, so during the week, we've got all our training sessions and stuff like that, but I like to meet with the players like individually as a group, and we write up on the whiteboard, what is your conscious commitment for the game? And what that could be, it all varies. So they have to own that action. So I'm going to run the floor. So little Johnny says, I'm going to run the floor. And then we can assess that. And if Johnny's not running the floor, as a group, you can say, hey, you said you were going to do this, but you didn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So really, by documenting, you can call people out on it.
Yeah.
I find that's a real good way of I'm going to shoot 100 free throws at the end of the training session, and if you only shoot 50, well, no, you can call them out and go, that's not good enough.
Yeah. So
You
I've seen Lamanis's trainings, and he has similar approaches. I've seen him do buddy system with that accountability on conscious decisions and things like that, where two individuals, one says this is what I'm going to do this training session, the other one says this is what I'm going to do, and then they hold each other to account, the two individuals. And also I've seen at their sessions where the guys that are on the sideline that might have load management and they're doing lighter loads, they've got to give water bottles to and get water bottles while guys are training and things, and it's just an automatic for them. It's like when there's a stoppage or whatever, they'll walk up with a water bottle while Lamanis or CJ or someone's actually coaching, so that those guys don't then have to have water breaks, I suppose. And if they don't do it, they're more or less, again, accountability. It's like give them a bottle. So yeah, have the bottles ready. So I've seen all the development players and that ready running with bottles and things like that. So
Yeah, I think if there's an action and you have somebody holding them responsible for it, that's one of the best ways. And again, it's one of those things as part of your selection criteria, selection process. They know that.
Mm-hmm.
So coming into the season, if I'm constantly on somebody about, well, you said you were going to do this and you didn't do that, they're not going to be in the team.
Yeah.
And again, I liken it to in the real world. If you don't do your job properly, you lose your job.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the whole thing. There's a consequence to your behaviours.
Yeah, we've got about 10 minutes. About 10 minutes left. So anyone wants to ask a question, I would really encourage you to ask one. And we'll come to the comments later at the end if we missed a question or there's a statement there. I've asked Bevo to go onto the page and have a look and reply to anyone and give any feedback that we may have missed, because it is hard to follow those questions. So really appreciate those that are watching tonight and engaging in the conversation with Bevo. It's really appreciated that you're here with us, and I appreciate Bevo's time, obviously. So we give him another 10 minutes and we'll move on so he can have the rest of his night. But on that accountability, I'll ask a question around culture. How hard is it? Like, you're in a situation now where you were starting or meant to start with the Southland Sharks, but you come into a program and you inherit a little bit of a previous coach's culture. How hard is it, and how long does it take to develop your own culture in that setting? And who has the say in culture? Because obviously with some, we were talking about management before, like is it their culture as well? Because sometimes the coach comes in, but the management's the same. So how does culture work for you to come in and try and build something?
Yeah, well, again, it's a real big thing about what is actual culture.
Yeah.
And that's part of the process of me writing this book. It's called When Winning Matters, and I'm co-authoring with Dr. Stephen Bird. So we've worked together the best part of 10 years. So he's a sports science background, and I'm the coaching background. So we're combining, what we've learnt over the last 25 plus years of coaching, and culture is one of the big things. And I think you've got to break it down. Well, what is culture? You've got either a good culture or a bad culture, and obviously the most successful teams are those that have a positive, healthy environment to work in. So, to me, culture is about the environment that you're in. So, my philosophy in running a program or starting any program is it's not about me as the coach. It's not about the management. It's about the athlete. So everything we want to do is based around the athlete, that we want to make them better. So from a coaching perspective, my job is to teach them the skills, the strategy, the tactics, all of those things. But then I've got a strength and conditioning coach that they take care of the physical development. And then I've got another support network that's teaching them the mental skills, the emotional skills, things like that. The management's role is to provide the resources to be able to build a program that makes the athlete better.
Yeah.
So that's the approach that I go with. So it's irrelevant. Like if they've come from a what I call a toxic environment before, where it's about the ownership group or the management. Firstly, I wouldn't work there.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. I wouldn't put myself in that situation. So I was very lucky to be able to work with a great organisation like Southland that had. One of the first things they said, "Oh no, this isn't about winning. This is not about, of course, we want to win,
Yep.
but it's about we want to provide the best facilities, the best coaching, the best situation for these athletes to succeed. So, but if they're put in a situation, where I've been with, with teams in the past, that you've got ownership management groups that are bypassing you straight to the athlete, making threats if you don't score 20 a game, or you don't do this, or you don't do all of those things, that which creates the bad culture. So to me, I write what I call a business plan for the basketball program. That's my expertise, and I will run the basketball program based on the athlete. But what I do is, when we're talking about what we want to achieve as a team, it's actually the athletes that are going to have some input into it. There's two sides. So if it's a seasonal program, so right now, for example, if I'm coaching like in a season, NBL, whatever it might be, over a few months, you've got more time to do that. You come and go, okay, what are the non-negotiable behaviours that we want to implement as a group? What are we going to stand for? What's our vision? And you can build that with the players and get the players to actually say, hey, we want to, these are the behaviours that we have to do. Oh, you must give them a water bottle. You must do this. You must run hard every time. Sub yourself out. All little things like, I'm going to shoot extra free throws. I'm going to be at training 30 minutes beforehand. All of those things, the athletes have to have buy-in.
Mm-hmm.
If it's tournament play, like for example, with a national program, it's more about you're representing your country. You're representing millions of people. So there is an expectation that when you're on the floor, you give nothing but 100%. You've got to give above and beyond. So there's slightly different models that you can have with building the culture. But in my mind, it's a positive, enthusiastic environment to make the players feel wanted. When they feel wanted, they know that you care for them. You know that you give them a lot more. And also, I build programs with a holistic approach. It's not just about being on the court learning offense and defense. It's about what are you going to do off the court?
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do in your career? What are you doing with your family? I'm really big about happy wife, happy life type of situation. You've got to look after the people. So, they've got to have education. They've got to have again, a holistic approach to what we do. And that's my job as the coach, is to put them in that environment.
Have you got time for two more questions?
Yeah,
because here's the thing: is when I start to tell people that we're running out of time, then some questions come thick and fast. So we've got one from Sam Gruggan. So he's actually asked, who would be three coaches you'd want to have dinner with, and what would be three questions you'd ask them?
Probably one of my besties, Sean Dennis. He's he's just he's been by my side through the highs and the lows. He always challenges you, and that's the thing. Like, he's not a yes man at all. So he would definitely ask a lot of hard questions of you. The whys. You do that. Greg Popovich.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to talk to Popovich, because again, I just, particularly the way that he's had his relationship with management, that he's been there. He's the longest serving, 23 years, I think, in the NBA with the Spurs, with RC Buford.
Yeah.
They're a small budget team, in the scheme of things, but the way that he builds programs, that I'd be keen to ask him questions about his relationship that he has with management, because that seems like an amazing relationship. And then Phil Jackson, he's way out there. Like after just listening to him, with The Last Dance, with the series and stuff like that, just his looking at the way, it's a completely different outlook with how he does things as well. And again, the relationships that he builds. And, so I think those three people, I'd love to, be able to, talk for hours, just sit down and talk basketball, but probably life.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably the thing I'd love to do.
Nice. And
thanks for that question, Sammy.
So Mark Irwin's asked, how do you balance performance with behaviours? For example, you have a gun player, but they are disruptive to the team.
Yeah, gone.
I like that answer because
Yeah,
it's exactly what I thought. It's like it's just like no
it's easier
decisions
said,
there.
it's easier said than done. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
of course.
Yeah, at the end of the day, when I'm recruiting a team at a national league level, they've all got some sort of talent.
Yeah,
There's no question about it. But if their talent is so disruptive for the other people, it becomes poisonous,
mm-hmm.
and it drags everything down. So two ways. One, as I said, get rid of them. That's the easiest thing, and maybe the hardest thing because they might be getting paid $300,000, and your management's not going to get rid of that type of player. So peer group pressure.
Yeah, so I wouldn't go reading in between the lines too much, but I'm sure that those experiences of where management are looking at a player over a coach based on what that player brings as far as bums on seats from a business point of view. Sometimes the player might actually win out there. So and we do see that in different sports that you get. I mean, LeBron. I think when you mentioned that is a David Blatt with Cleveland when they were winning and LeBron was there. And they moved him on, and he was in a good record, but apparently the rumor is that LeBron didn't want him there. So, with a winning record, they moved him on. I think 20 games or something like that, and it was just people just shaking their heads. And we've seen a couple of times happen with the Lakers too. With I can't remember who the coach was, but I think it was a Brown was his last name. But yeah, so those scenarios can happen too. But it's I guess it's one of those things that's where business comes into it as well as those decisions as to if it's not working, who.
And I find that it's when the management owner that wants to bring in the team's probably not going to win. I think ultimately they might get bums on seats and stuff like that, but they're probably not going to win if they're a bad egg with the group. So I think if you've got a strong senior leadership group that can pull that person's head in, I mean, if you look at the Rodman situation, that Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan were able to control Rodman to an extent, get him a lot more focused than what he may have otherwise been.
Yeah. So look, I'd love to go all night, and I'm sure everyone else would, but Bevo has a life. So, wish you luck with your Bookmate and giving us your time and sharing your knowledge, because there are a lot of players, coaches that have watched tonight and tuned in on all platforms. I'm just going to have a quick glimpse over at the YouTube channel as well. We've had a lot of activity over there, and unfortunately I'm one person, don't have a producer. So if you haven't subscribed on the YouTube channel, please head out and subscribe. I'm trying to get 200 subscriptions by the end of May. So if you can do that, that'd be really appreciated. Facebook, follow People with a Passion. I'll have someone else on People with a Passion next Thursday night. Appreciate your time, Bevo. And if
thanks for the invite.
No worries. And if anyone, we're going to look at the comments after this, or at some point. So if we've missed a question, do apologise if I haven't seen it, because the chat does scroll. But hopefully Bevo will take some time to acknowledge those that have joined us tonight, and if there's a question we've missed, maybe give it a little bit of a response in the comments there, Bevo. If you could, that would be appreciated.
No, definitely will do.
All right. Excellent. Thanks for your time, guys. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time next week for live streaming with friends. Take it easy, stay safe and healthy.